Today, I'm going to be sharing with you David's take on the presidential debates. Now, a lot of you have asked, you've sent me emails, you've commented on the Facebook post, some of my previous episodes around the New World Order or totalitarian control or Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s run. And I just got back from my annual Legendary Business event where I bring in my high-level coaching clients. And in the open Q&A, this was the question: hey, what do you think about the debates? And what I'm going to share with you is surprising. If you are politically aware, you're going to love this episode, because I'm going to be explaining to you why I believe that everything that we saw on that stage was absolutely perfect and in alignment with creating a better future. And I'm also going to empirically encourage you, meaning I'm going to use an evidence-based logic to encourage you to stop judging, resenting, or criticizing Biden or Trump, and explain how that's actually working against all of us, no matter what side of the political spectrum you sit on, and also how you can be active in getting the outcome that you want out of the presidency, out of our government. I know if you're listening to this episode, it's because you're passionate about what's happening with our country. You're wanting it to move in a better direction. There's some things that you don't agree with in terms of the direction it is headed. And I want to share with you really the metaphysical principles on how you can influence this election at the highest level. So I want to start with a little bit of backstory. And that backstory is taking a look about 8 months ago, maybe less now, 6 months ago, when we were having the presidential primaries. And as many of us are becoming aware, we've got a two-party system that is very structured in terms of maintaining its own integrity. It is very, very difficult for an independent third-party candidate to run. The third-party candidates are not immediately on a ballot like the official nominees of each party are. They have to petition in almost all states. That petitioning is very difficult. Then the actual signatures of the petitions are historically questioned and pursued by the two main parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. And frankly, most independent candidates get so bogged down and harassed by legal warfare that they end up just giving up. And so I wasn't aware of this, but I'm becoming aware of it as a result of watching Bobby Kennedy's campaign. And early on in the primaries, the Democratic Party decided they didn't want to see Bobby Kennedy win in any of the primaries. I believe it was New Hampshire, could have been Vermont, don't quote me on this, could have been Rhode Island. The state is not very important. You can Google it if you want to find the specifics on it. But what they ended up doing was starting to mess with the primary dates for one of these states. Let's just say it's New Hampshire. And so they were trying to push the dates of that primary back towards the back end of the primaries so that Biden could get some early quick wins. When they weren't able to do that because the date of the primary was embedded within the state's constitution, again, this is my understanding, they then went on to say, well, we're going to pass a new regulation that says if any presidential candidate goes to this state to start to lobby and start to campaign, then votes from individuals in that state will not be counted towards that candidate's primary. And then they decided at one point, well, then Biden's just not going to run in that state, right? When they couldn't get anything else to stick that would have prevented RFK Jr. from actually running in the state, they said, well, we'll just take Biden's name off the state. He doesn't need to run in the primary. He's going to become the candidate anyway. So why am I sharing this with you? I'm not sharing this with you to invoke any type of outrage or, the Democrats or, the Republicans or, Bobby Kennedy. It's just to understand that wherever we focus our attention and energy, that thing materializes at a deeper level into our reality, right? It's the idea of what you resist persists. And so the Democratic Party was resisting Bobby Kennedy. What you resist persists. Just like in our own lives, if we resist financial insecurity, we continue to experience financial insecurity, right? If we resist the health challenges that we're having, that creates additional tension on the system, and it turns into a chronic health challenge or a chronic disease. If we're resisting our partner in our relationship, then we continue to perpetuate a relationship that has a lot of resistance in it. And in other episodes, I talk about how this works, how your beliefs inform your thoughts, how your thoughts determine your feelings, how your feelings dictate your actions, how your actions determine your results. And so if you're resisting something, for example, if you believe that you've got to get rid of Bobby Kennedy, well, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to get rid of Bobby Kennedy. And so this is what the Democrats are experiencing. In fact, at one point I said to my wife, I said, this is fascinating because Bobby Kennedy is like a lifelong, orthodox Democrat, and he'd actually have a shot of potentially winning maybe this year and another year if he ran as an independent. Now that independents are the biggest voting bloc in our citizenry, and but he's not going to run as an independent. He's going to run as a Democrat. And so what happens? Democrats lean on him so hard. He says, I can't run as a Democrat because so many of my constituents are being denied the opportunity to vote for me. I'm going to run as an independent. Boom. Now he becomes an even bigger burden. So we've been seeing this really dynamic scene playing out where we're all being exposed to the fact, again, whether you're right, whether you're left, it doesn't really matter, but how the system is rigged. And, I've been having conversations with a lot of people from a lot of different perspectives, and more people are acknowledging the system is rigged. I still have my guy, but the system is rigged. The people who don't believe the system is rigged anymore are really few and far between. They're just people, frankly, who either so ideologically captured that they're not open to any alternative perspective or new information coming into the mix to at least open their minds a little bit, or they're just not paying attention, right? One of the two. So we have on one part of this dynamic the elimination of third-party alternative, and really powerful efforts to do so. Even if you look at Kennedy's campaigning for the debate stage, which I'm going to, again, break down for you in a moment, why everything was absolutely perfect and in alignment with creating a better future and how we need to stop judging, resenting, and criticizing Biden and Trump, as well as what you can do to actually impact the election. I think in all historical years of our presidential election, at least so far back as it goes, there's a Federal Elections Commission that hosts the debate. Well, all of a sudden this year, that process was bypassed. CNN did a direct deal with Biden and Trump, and the understanding, based on information that's come out, I don't know if it's true or not, is that one of the caveats was that a third-party candidate, specifically Bobby Kennedy Jr., would not be able to participate in that. And while it may have seemed like it was sort of a fair criteria that candidates had to get on enough state ballots to generate the 270 electoral votes that were required in order to become president, it's basically saying, hey, if you can't even get on enough state ballots, then why are we going to have you on the national debate stage? The date was moved up for the debate ahead of the time that many of the states have their own process of approving those signatures. So there was no way that Bobby Kennedy could actually get on the debate stage. In other words, the rules were crafted in such a way that it eliminated him. And again, what you resist persists. So Bobby Kennedy had his own, debate with 9 million viewers, which is really quite astounding. When you think about it, there were 50 some odd million people who viewed Trump versus Biden, and that was broadcast on, on all of the major news stations and news channels. So they basically got 20 to 25, million if you split it down the middle views each. And Kennedy got 10 million just on his own little debate on X, formerly Twitter. So now we get this showcase of just Biden and Trump. And everything that we saw was absolutely perfect. And the reason it was perfect is because you're wanting to have a better future. You're here because you're wanting to see better governance. You're here for a variety of different reasons. You might be here because you don't want to continue to see what some people have referred to as the endless wars. And you're here because you want to see a planet that has an environment which is protected, and you're concerned about climate change. Forget about the science of climate change and whether the temperature is increasing. There's no denying that we're destroying the habitats of this world, from the Great Plains to the Great Coral Reefs to the rainforests. Like that's taking place. You're here because you want to have a greater opportunity for yourself, and you feel like things might be stacked unfairly against you. You're here because you're concerned about regulatory organizations, whether it's financial regulatory organizations or pharmaceutical regulatory organizations. You're concerned about those organizations being stacked and seized by the same corporations that they're meant to regulate. So there's a lot of things that we're seeing in the world, censorship versus free speech, that we're concerned about. And then there are some other issues that are very polarizing for people. like pro-choice, pro-life, but you have a vision of what you'd like to see unfold. And my guess is if you're here, you're not particularly thrilled with the candidates that you saw showcased on the election debate night. But one of the things that we teach is that in infinitely intelligent ways, life is always working for our greatest growth, our greatest prosperity, and our greatest evolution. Life is architecting situations and scenarios in our individual lives that are setting us up for breakthroughs. So oftentimes the challenges that we experience in our individual lives, for example, experiencing financial scarcity or lack of abundance, just becomes the pathway to us experiencing great wealth. And the things that we don't like in our lives, going back to the financial insecurity piece, not feeling like we don't have enough, those actually catalyze our desires for having more prosperity and abundance. Being chronically ill catalyzes your desire for extraordinary wellness. Being alone in your life and going out on a bunch of dates with people who aren't your soulmate catalyze and focus your energies and desires towards finding your soulmate. So we live in this dualistic reality where we experience things that we don't like because they help us get even clearer and focus our energy and attention on what we do. The challenge is that most of us haven't been taught the science of creation, and we've never been explained that, hey, these things that show up in your life that you don't like, you're meant to just notice them and then use them as a pointer towards what you do want, and now bring all of your attention and all of your action and all of your emotion in the direction of what you want to create. And so what happens is there's a car accident, but rather than acknowledge that we're safe, we just want to continue to pay attention to the car accident. So what we saw on the debate stage was a great example of what none of us want, and it's meant to inspire us into getting even clearer on what we do want and then creating it. But we end up getting entangled with, oh my God, I can't believe that, Biden's completely incapacitated or senile, and he should never even be able to run for president, and he needs to step down. And, Trump is a liar. He lied about almost everything that he said on that debate stage, and I don't want a liar. And what are we going to do? We have to stop Trump. He threatens our democracy. He's a Marxist or a racist or this or that. And so we stay entangled with the problem. But what's meant to happen is for that experience that we had on the debate stage to catalyze our desire for something new. So I'm very excited because there was an incredibly public showcase that impacted the consciousness of millions of people that have activated within so many people a new level of a change in our system that I believe it's an inevitability that change occurs. It could be a breaking away from the two-party system. It could be attracting or materializing candidates that represent our values, who are honest, who are compassionate, who act through love. If there's one thing that you can say about what we saw as we bore witness to this year's first debate, was that it's not based on love, it's not based on compassion, it's not based on empathy. A lot of what I saw was taking place is that people are voting for their candidate out of fear of the other candidate. So a lot of people that I know are voting for Trump out of fear of Biden. A lot of people that I know who are voting for Biden are voting out of fear for Trump. But everything that we teach on this channel says that the emotional state that you take action from, including casting your vote, is simply going to create more of that emotion. So if you're voting out of fear, then whoever you vote for is going to be part of creating future circumstances and situations that when we experience them will invoke more fear. And so we want to be voting out of inspiration and voting out of love. And that's why I like what Robert F. Kennedy is about. Strip everything else down. Metaphysical principles tell us that we should be voting out of inspiration, excitement, love, compassion, whoever we vote for. And Jesus isn't running this year. So whoever you vote for. And so just from a frequency or energetic standpoint, for me, RFK is a clear choice. Setting aside some of the things people say about his conspiracy theories, I don't think a lot of what he talks about is necessarily a conspiracy theory. I like what Russell Brand said. The difference between conspiracy and fact these days is about 6 months. I don't agree with him on his Israel position. I don't think we should give unconditional support to anyone. I'm not even quite sure how that makes sense. I wish I had asked him that question when I had an opportunity to have dinner with him a couple of months ago. But what's unfolding is absolutely perfect. It's perfect. Because we're all going, hey, this is a shit show and this doesn't work for us anymore. But the important thing, and I'm going to explain this to you when I get into how you can actually affect the outcome of the presidency, is to not get entangled with it. So, I'm over here in my man cave where I'm doing my recordings going, that was amazing. That was perfect. That was such a perfect reflection of the unresolved trauma inside of all of us. That was such a perfect reflection of where consciousness is right now for the majority of Americans, right? We lie to ourselves, we fool ourselves, we lie to others, and then we're surprised when we have presidential candidates who are doing the same thing. But that's what we do all the time. We lie to ourselves and we lie to others every single day. And so I just think that this is an opportunity to be clear that a change is taking place. I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and he said, like, hey, the debates, that's all he said. And I said, yeah. He was like, what do you think? And I said, never in my lifetime have I seen anything like that. Never in my lifetime. It was always like, yeah, I guess George Bush could be president. Yeah, I guess Bill Clinton could be president. Yeah, I guess Barack Obama was actually really excited about till he sold me on hope and change and said he was going to remove all of the bankers from the financial regulatory bodies and from positions of power within our government making economic decisions. And then he basically walked the Federal Reserve and the big banks into our government, right? But that was a good play, hope and change. Even you look at Hillary Clinton, you're like, yeah, okay, maybe. You look at George Bush Jr. All right, yeah, I don't know, not so much, But most of the candidates, you're like, well, they're kind of presidential. These two, no. These two, no. And kind of the litmus test is, especially for those of you who are entrepreneurs, it's like, if you had a business, would you let Joe Biden run it? If the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't vote for the guy. If you had a business, would you let Donald Trump run it? Now, some people would say yes because they think Donald Trump is a great businessman. I think Donald Trump is a phenomenal marketer. But if I listen to how Donald Trump strings conversations together, it's absolute nonsense, right? There's no way I would let that man run my business. I mean, he's asked a question about, where did you have dinner last night? And he's like, well, I had dinner last night. It was very good. Some other people said it was very good. Everybody seems to be in agreement that it's all good. It was Mexican food. Mexico's the problem. I mean, we got locked down this border. We have a lot of people coming across the border, people who are criminals, they're rapists, they're thieves, right? They're coming across, and, the Democrats aren't doing anything to help that. The Democrats aren't doing anything to help anything. I can't get help with anything around here. I tell you, the people who are in, working at the Oval Office these days in the White House, you can't get them to do anything. You can't, it's just, right? It's like the perfect example of one thought just automatically leading to the next with no appropriate consideration of whether or not there's a connecting idea there. Not running my business. But they're showcasing the insanity of our two-party system. They're inspiring a lot of other people like myself to run for president. And within all of us, even though we may still be entangled with the problem, watching all the political porn that's out there talking about the doom and gloom and who should step down and what should do this. It's, the important thing is that you saw that debate, and I think you got clear that we need something better, and just use all of the things that offended you from that conversation to get clear on whatever the opposite would be, because that's what you want. You want strong character. You want people who genuinely care. You want people who are strong but act out of love and compassion. You want highly intelligent people, running your government and solving the world's biggest problems. Again, I happen to think Bobby Kennedy Jr. fits a lot of that profile, but that's just me. And the fact that he wasn't allowed on the stage because the rules were stacked against him was a beautiful opportunity because it just showcased these two other polarizing figures. Hey, it's David. Just a quick interruption to your regularly scheduled episode by your favorite sponsor. I want to tell you about my book. It is available on Amazon right here, right now. A Changed Mind, Go Beyond Self-Awareness, Rewire Your Brain, and Re-Engineer Your Reality. In this little book are all the frameworks, the tools, the methodologies that I talk about on this show and that I've used to actually change my mind and that tens of thousands of other people have used to transform their bank accounts, their businesses, their relationships, their health, their spiritual connection, everything that you want to achieve. This is the way to achieve it. And Amazon has done us a good one right now. It's significantly discounted. So you can go and pick up your copy, or better yet, pick up a copy for a friend too. There's nothing better than giving the gift of transformation right now. Hop on over to Amazon. There's a link in the show notes. And if you love the book as much as I loved writing it for you, do me a favor, let me know that and leave a review. And now, back to your regularly scheduled episode. Now, how should we view these figures? Well, I mean, geez, I think about if Biden were my grandfather. You know, I loved my grandfather. My grandfather lived to be 78 years old. I think Biden's probably older than that, right? And if my grandfather, who I love, had to tackle that schedule, flying from the U.S. to Europe to meet European leaders and come back and do debates, and he was in Biden's shape, I'd be like, my God, family, we got to ask him to step down. You know, he looks like a walking corpse. And that's a very sad thing. That's not a thing to be used as an attack point by Republicans or Democrats to get him to resign, because that's how it's being used. If you feel the frequency of the information as it's being communicated, if you stop for a second and think about an elderly person that you love dearly who is either being forced into or not getting the support to step down, the type of schedule that Biden is in, it's sad. I mean, this is a time where he should be resting. He should be playing with his grandkids. He should be able to enjoy the back end last few years of his life. He should be getting medical care on his mental health. And instead, he's got the most rigorous schedule of anybody on the planet. That's really sad. And that's what the system has become, which is why it needs to change, which is why we were shown the current situation of it in full living color during that first debate. So have compassion for Biden, have love for Biden. I mean, you know, whether or not his family's made, you know, $10 million, $20 million, $30 million from China or Ukraine with corrupt business dealings that probably tie directly back to him, just the humanity in all of us, right, should be like, wow, I'm sorry. Like, hold the vision of him being able to rest, right? That's what you can do. Just hold the vision from a loving presence of him being able to rest, because that's the right thing. It's not about someone else should be, you know, running for the Democrats. The guy should be given the grace of resting. And then Trump, you know, a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Trump. I could certainly jump in with them. But look, Trump, if you've ever been exposed to David Hawkins' emotional scale, David Hawkins was, I think, one of the most integrated and embodied spiritual teachers of our time. He's not with us anymore, but he wrote Power versus Force, and he used muscle testing or kinesiology to measure every frequency of emotion and every idea and everything that he could really get his muscle testing hands on. And so he maps out all of the emotions from the lowest level of emotion to the highest level of emotion. And so we break those emotions into two categories. The higher level of emotions are called powerful states, and the lower level of emotions are called primal states. And a lot of what we teach on this channel and in our coaching programs is how to identify when you've moved into a primal state, meaning the patterns of thinking that are generating, let's call it negative emotions, and how to work with that information as it's coming in to transform it so you can operate more consistently from a powerful state and have what we call a powerful living experience. And so we break it out into just two categories, powerful states and primal states, and sort of right at the middle point is like calm and boredom. But David Hawkins mapped the whole thing out. And any upward movement towards the highest levels of emotion, love, joy, bliss, is positive. And we're living in a system that is automatically encouraging us to move more consistently into those higher vibrational states. That's corresponds to the evolution of humanity. We become higher vibrational beings. And Donald Trump is the best, perhaps, I've seen in my life of moving people from hopelessness to anger. And that's a pretty big leap. So Donald Trump is bringing, and I know this sounds crazy, Donald Trump is helping to awaken the consciousness of more people than anybody I've seen in the political sphere for a long, long time, maybe ever. You go, wait a minute. Are you saying that Donald Trump is an agent of change? Donald Trump is an angel of consciousness? Yeah, I'm saying that everybody plays a role within the system of intelligence to move us forward. That's why I believe in the certainty of the goodness in the future. You can just see that we're making this progression towards higher and higher states of being, and then we'll experience those states of being through materialized reality. And part of that materialized reality will be a new president and a new government and new governance around the world at some point in time that reflects that higher states of being. And this is just the process of getting there. But yeah, Donald Trump is doing an amazing job. He's pulling a lot of people out of hopelessness and moving them towards anger. Now, in big groups, this can also be dangerous. I mean, that's what we did see with Adolf Hitler. I don't think the metaphor is appropriate with Donald Trump, but just acknowledge that there's a role being played. And, for example, I'm not the best in the world at moving people from hopelessness to anger. That's not what I do. I move people from lower states to really high states, right? Beautiful states, powerful states of being. But if we're going to start moving the masses, somebody's got to get in there and do the dirty work and move these massive chunks of people who are not ready yet for beautiful states or powerful states or good states of feeling on a regular basis, but move them up the negative emotional scale. And Trump does an amazing job of doing that. And then we look at Biden and at RFK, and RFK is sort of an example of what's coming. I'm not suggesting that, I don't know if RFK is going to win or not. It's hard to, believe the information that's out there. When I look at YouTube videos, whether it's on Fox or MSNBC or CNN or independent media, there's overwhelmingly positive comments about Robert Kennedy Jr., right? It's shocking. Like MSNBC or CNBC will do a hit piece on him, and rather than people piling on and jumping in and calling him a conspiracy theorist, they're criticizing the news hosts. It's really a powerful thing to see. I really enjoy seeing that. Again, I have to kind of gauge my exposure to it because it does require a certain level of focus and energy and intention to maintain a good vibration around it. But it's really interesting. So I don't know if the polls are accurate. It seems like a lot of people are leaning towards Bobby Kennedy Jr. And if the whole idea was, we've got to keep Trump out of office and you're a Democrat, then, if you're voting for Biden, you're throwing your vote away. So, Kennedy could certainly make the argument that, hey, if you want to keep Trump out of office, I'm the only one you can vote for. And he kind of has with a recent independent poll that he's put out there that shows exactly that. The head-to-head, Biden can't win. And if Biden steps down, head-to-head, Kennedy will just slip by and beat him. So I don't know whether or not he can win, but whether he wins or not, and I've said this before, is not a referendum on Bobby Kennedy Jr., it's a referendum on us. The question is, have we healed enough in order to put someone in the office of the president who's actually going to be able to create the change that we're wanting to see in the world? Who's going to be able to protect the planet, who's going to be able to protect the people, who's going to be able to protect our civil liberties, who's going to be able to spark innovation, who's going to be able to solve the world's biggest problems, who's going to be able to handle, $40 trillion in debt, and, the fact that we're still funding gain-of-function research and the possibilities of new, more deadly pandemics and all the stuff that, I'm not paying attention to as problems, but I'm aware of, which is then catalyzing my desire to have somebody in place or a group of people in place who are super, super smart who can solve the world's problems. And so I don't know that we're ready for that because Kennedy starts to align with that. If you actually listen to what the guy says, he's not saying vaccines are bad. He's saying vaccines are treated with a different level of science than other medical products, and we should apply the same standard across the board. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he's saying. He's saying... what was another thing he said recently? Oh, he talked about the involvement with antidepressants in school shootings. And then that turns into conspiracy theory. He's saying they cause school shootings. If you listen to what he says, that's not what he says. He's saying we should research to see if there's a correlation. Because there are a lot of these, kind of black box type warnings on a lot of these medications. And so we should just explore and we should see. So he's open to looking at things differently. He represents a new way of doing things. I'm not quite sure that we've got enough of our own individual consciousness upgraded in order to make that a reality. We'll see. But everything that's happening right now is happening perfectly. Like, how else would it play out? Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, and Black Panther show up and just change everything? Well, it's a process. This is an evolutionary process. And, I believe, you can ask, maybe Brett Weinstein this. I'm not an evolutionary biologist. But, I bet you that if you apply evolutionary principles to what's going on in humanity, you'll see that they're playing out and it takes time. And pressure has to occur in order for a species to change. I look at it from a metaphysical standpoint. I look at it from a vibrational standpoint. there are more of us moving into a higher vibration, meaning we've cleared out a lot of the childhood trauma, the limiting beliefs, the misunderstandings, the unintelligent thinking that's held in the vibration of our nervous system. We've cleared out a lot of the fear. And so we're creating a future that's going to have less fear in it. Now, what I've also experienced in my own life and have now seen in 10,000 coaching sessions that my team and I have conducted is that a lot of times as we're making progress, then there's a big dip, or a speed bump that we hit, and it brings you along even faster. There's like a crisis or a challenge that shows up. I saw that in my own life with my drug and alcohol recovery. Shit had to get really, really bad in order for me to actually find God. And that's what I did in the rooms of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so, I think this is a natural process. I think in many ways we can predict what's going to happen moving forward. But the good news is that if you have the ability to live your life with emotional sovereignty, meaning you don't get entangled with the fear, then the waves of contraction tend to pass much faster, and somehow we end up in a better part of the swell. You know what I mean? You end up in a better place, mysteriously, magically. It's this idea of vibration and law of attraction, but you're able to navigate these challenges that are inevitable and part of the process of the expansion that we're looking forward and into a little bit more gracefully, or a lot of bit more gracefully. So what I really want to share with you, if you're still with me in this episode, first of all, thank you, is don't be dismayed. Don't be dismayed. It's absolutely perfect. Everything is playing out according to an intelligent plan that is moving us towards the realization of a modern day promised land. And I believe it's going to take place during our lives. So, more and more people are being pulled out of a two-party indoctrinated system that we've been in for a long time, and we're all being lumped together in a waiting room. Some of that waiting room is the independent parties, but we're all moving over into a waiting room. And so while we're in the waiting room, why suffer, right? Why not appreciate how this is a natural process, how the two-party system and the corruption and the conflict and the friction that occurs within it, right? That we would call, maybe criminal activity, that we would certainly call inappropriate. It's all part of inspiring within us something better and something new. And the actors who are involved are just playing their roles. In the case of Biden, we can have compassion. In the case of Trump, we can actually have appreciation. I know some of you are going to shudder at that idea. But his role to play was not to showcase the democratic process for us by not inciting the January 6th insurrection. Like, a lot of people go, I can't believe Trump did that. It's like, really? You can't believe Trump did that? That's what Trump does. That's what a Trump does. That's what a Trump does. That's like saying, I can't believe a pharmaceutical company lied to people. It's like, really? That's what they do. That's why there have been hundreds of billions of dollars of reparations made. I can't believe, right, the government officials are on the take and can be lobbied in order to push us into, really? You can't believe that? That's what government officials do in the current state of consciousness, right? That's like saying, I can't believe my dog, licked his own tail. Like, really? That's what dogs do. Wake up and realize that that's what Trump does. That's what government officials do. It's what governments do. It's what pharmaceutical companies do. It's what your dog does. They do what they do. So let's find what we can appreciate about them. And what I'm sharing with you, which I think is a really profound awareness, is that Trump is a great mover of vibration in a positive direction, up the emotional scale. Thank you for that. There's a prayer, I think it's a Hawaiian prayer, Ho'oponopono, and it basically translates into like, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Maybe not in that order, but I think that's really appropriate. When you're bearing witness, when you're allowing into your consciousness anything related to this election, just say thank you, right? I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And you're saying thank you, I love you, because you're recognizing that this is part of God's divine plan. Look, you can have Trump or Biden exist outside of God, but now you're being really, really discretionary with God. right? Or a higher power. Either everything is part of the system and it's all working in coordination, or nothing is part of the system. But I know a lot of you believe in this idea of a higher power and you call it God. It's like, well, all of these components are part of that too. Just let the play out. And when you know that these actors are the mechanism by which we're going to truly live as free and independent people, and our children will live as free and independent people, because this is an unfolding process, and then it might get a little gnarly in between now and then, but you've got the tools to navigate it. Then you can say, thank you, I love you, right? Thank you, I love you, Joe Biden. That must be miserable running around as a quasi-corpse on that schedule, right? Think about how much pain and how much trauma Trump is holding in order to be Trump. I mean, just look at that smug on his face. It's like locked into the fascia of his head, right? Thank you, I love you. You know, I'm grateful because I get to process my trauma and process my pain. And so I feel more free every day of my life as I do this personal development work. These people have come in to hold a significant amount of trauma, and you know what that feels like. Thank you, I love you. Thank you, I love you. And also, please forgive me and I'm sorry. Because these people represent the things that are still inside of us that we're working on. You know, someone said something to me the other day, yeah, but, you know, we should be upset that our government lies to us. It's like, why does our government lie to us? Because we lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves about how small we are. We lie to ourselves about financial insecurity. We lie to ourselves that there's not enough time. We lie to ourselves pretending we're not meant for greatness. We lie to others about ourselves. We lie to others about them. You know, these guys didn't create lying. We did. It's just materializing in the structure. So please forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for judging you. I'm sorry for my own character flaws. I'm sorry for my own inefficiencies. And I'm going to do better. And you know what? If we all just decide to do better, not only do we do better, but when we do better, meaning we're kinder, we're more compassionate, we honor our word, we're inquisitive about doing the research ourselves rather than just trusting what the experts say. All this information is out there. If you don't believe Bobby Kennedy, go do the research. Right? If you don't trust Donald Trump or you think he's lying, prove it. All the information is out there. Yet we lie to each other. We lie to ourselves all the time. That's all these guys are reflecting back to us. So thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm excited about the certainty of the goodness of the future and where an emerging political dynamic will have an impact and what role it will play. And I'm excited to see the characters that emerge after we've seen so many bad actors, in particular as showcased by this first presidential election and highlighted by the fact that Bobby Kennedy was prohibited from participating. It's all working according to plan. And it's important for you to know that, because so many people get so caught up with all of this, develop a fear-based relationship with it, get entangled with it, and then because fear is so alluring and we're so used to it, become addicted to watching this stuff, and it becomes political porn. And what I want to do is give you a healthy, what I would consider to be right perspective on what's going on, so that you don't have to think about it all the time. You don't have to think about it. It's all working according to plan. You want to pay attention a little bit to stay informed, great. But if there's anything that you notice that you don't like, don't get entangled with it. Use that as an opportunity to get clear on what you do want to see in terms of policy, in terms of people, in terms of process. And hold that vision. That's the most powerful thing that you can do. Your vision for the certainty of the goodness of the future is the best way you can impact this campaign. I promise you, by the end of this episode, I'm going to tell you what you can actually do in order to make an impact. It's stop entangling with the fear. Recognize that all of this is working exactly the way that it should, and join me in holding a vision for the certainty of the goodness of the future. The byproduct of that will be policy changes. The byproduct of that will be micro decisions that each campaign makes that leads to that. The byproduct of that will be eventually having someone in office at the highest level that represents our values, who can push forward these noble policies to an even greater degree. But it doesn't come from feeding more fear into the system. That's how we got what we got. So this is really simple. It's binary. It's fear versus faith. And I'm very, very grateful for what I saw happen on that stage. And it leads me to believe even more, with even greater certainty, in the goodness of the future. And I hope it does you too. So if you love the episode and you think someone else that you care about should hear this because they're a little bit too caught up in who's right and who's wrong in the political porn, feel free to share it. If you haven't yet, subscribe. Check out some of the other videos on this channel that are going to teach you how to actually identify the fear in your own life and metabolize it and transform it into expansion, into wealth, into health, into relationships, so you can do your part in creating a system that we all love. So I love you very, very much, and I'm glad you're here, and I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, it's David. Hop on over to davidbear.com. Click right here. There's also a link in the show notes, and sign up for our newsletter. You'll get immediate access to my free Mind Hack ebook, as well as a couple of trainings to help you master the inner game. This is a great way to stay informed and be a part of our community and be notified of special announcements. Click below, head on over to the website, get subscribed. If you loved this video, make sure you check out this one or this one, and I will see you in the next video.